Welcome to the Blooming League of Original Podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Talk Musicals to Me, a fun theatre podcast about musicals and their impact on people. My name is Caroline Sheen and I'm here to quiz some of the leading creatives in the entertainment industry about their relationship with musical theatre and how certain musicals may have influenced their lives in ways you may not even expect. From how they first encountered a musical to musicals they may never even have seen, let's dive in and introduce today's guest to open up and talk musicals to me. My guest today, I've just loved following his career. He's so young and is doing such brilliant things that I've been able to kind of keep track of him over the last few years as his star has ascended. He has gone from directing straight out of university into this superstardom where he has recently now won the Olivier for Best Director, and his huge hit show Paddington is taking the West End by storm, soon to take the whole world by storm, I imagine. I've watched his work over the years and everything he's done has just been touched with such class and brilliance, and it's so exciting to see in somebody so young. The first thing I saw was The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole. To those of you who've listened to the podcast, you'll know that our guest Pippa Cleary was the composer of that, and he's gone on to In the Heights. I don't know if that was first or second, but he has then done Starlight Express, Just for One Day, just so many brilliant things. He's about to bring Rent back into the West End for its, I can't believe I'm saying this, its 30th anniversary. And it's just so exciting to see somebody new and fresh and young come up through the ranks and do it so brilliantly. So please welcome Luke Sheppard to talk musicals to me today. Hello, Luke. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hello. Yes, thank you for having me and thank you for your very kind words. I really appreciate it.
Which was first? I can't remember if it was In the Heights or Adrian Mole.
Adrian Mole had quite a long kind of journey through the various different versions. So I think we did it in Leicester Curve first, and then In the Heights happened, and then Adrian Mole then went on to the Menier and ultimately the West End. So I think both things are true. Both came before the other.
Chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
In the Heights, Adrian Mole, we don't know. But both fantastic shows. I think I saw In the Heights when it was at King's Cross with a very pregnant Vix in it, just being absolutely incredible in high heels and a huge baby bump. It was amazing.
Yeah, and as you say, one of the privileges of our career is watching, people grow throughout their lives and journeys on the stage. And so to be able to work with Vix in that, actually right back at Southwark Playhouse when it was all of the cast in one dressing room together, to now be working with her on Paddington. It's one of the great joys of what we do, to meet people at different points in their lives.
I know we all go, the word journey is so overused, but when you do join this industry, you see people along the way and you grow with them. And I do find that really exciting. And like having basically, guys, I went to see Paddington last night. And I'm still buzzing from it this morning, obviously, because who wouldn't be? And many of my friends were in the cast and their friends. I've seen Amy Ellen Richardson and Amy Booth Steele in so many other shows, and to see them in this one doing such incredible work. And also, I think the same with directors and choreographers, because you started as a staff director, is that the right word? Or you assisted Matthew Warchus, didn't you, at some point?
Yeah, and actually just quickly on that, so both Amy and Amy were in Adrian Mole. In different versions.
Yes.
So yeah, they're two others who it's been nice to kind of grow with over the years. But yeah, I started out as assistant director on Matilda at the RSC in Stratford, and then moved to London with it as the associate director, and then on to Broadway as the associate, and learned so much on that. And really it was being able to do both my own work and the work alongside brilliant directors like Matthew Warchus that has sort of grown me throughout my directing years.
And am I right in thinking your choreographer on Paddington was also an assistant choreographer on Matilda? Matilda or assisted Peter Darling to a certain extent?
Yeah, so Ellen Kane, who's just phenomenal, was Peter Darling's associate choreographer on Matilda and actually on many shows with Peter. And so, yes, we know each other from back in the day. Actually, really hadn't connected at all in the decade or so in between. And what was really lovely was actually meeting each other totally afresh as people who are now doing their own work. And I think it's fine for me to say, for myself, certainly as a grown-up, because I was very, very young when I worked on Matilda, and to be able to introduce myself now to Ellen and say, hey, you know, this is the work that I'm doing. I really love your work as an independent choreographer. I think we might be the right match on this. Has been a really lovely, brilliant thing.
I just think that's really lovely. And then obviously when we're in this business, well, I don't know about anyone else, but I always look at the creative team. You spot them then in other things years on. That growth and that development, it's obviously a natural thing, but it's also a really exciting thing to see that, you know, that is possible. No one has to stay in their boxes. You can step out of it. And I imagine that's quite a big step for an assistant director to take. Anyway, we'll get on to all this. So my first question to you is, how did you first meet musical theatre?
I first met musical theatre because I was born with a slight difference. My left leg was kind of turned inwards, and I had a sort of difference in my left foot, which meant that I couldn't use it in the same way that I use my right foot. And I needed to go to a kind of physiotherapy for that. And my physiotherapist suggested that I went and did some ballet. And so I went along to ballet lessons. And meanwhile, my brilliant parents had been trying to get me into football or judo or various other things. And I didn't like those very much. But it turns out I really loved ballet. That was something that was both good for my leg and the exercises that I needed to do for that. But it also brought me a lot of joy. And while I was there, you know, started going to see different shows. And again, my parents, who were just brilliant, would take me to see shows at the local theatre, and once a year would go to London and see musicals there. And it was going to see Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat at the Palladium that I think I can sort of trace it all back to. And I was able to go, hold on a minute, this thing that I love doing, this hobby of mine, ballet, which is really helping my leg, is also something that could ultimately, you know, lead to these amazing shows. And so then started taking the extra acting and singing classes on the side. And then actually had a very sort of an early mini career as a child actor.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I did quite a lot of shows on stage and made some different kind of TV and film things, which really sort of grew that part of who I am now. So yeah, I really met it, I guess, kind of by accident because of the physiotherapy aspect to it. And then just fell in love with, you know, going to see the shows.
Talipes.
That's what I have. So yeah, I was in like a metal boot and plaster for quite a long time. And then yeah, had this amazing physio who kind of took me under her wing and yeah, wanted to set me up best for life. And yeah, she was the one who pointed us towards ballet. So I think it's one of those things where it was meeting somebody who really, yeah, made a change for me. And yeah, very grateful for that. But yeah.
But I guess for a guy, that's not the usual hobby a boy takes up. Like you say, judo or football, especially in those days, was where you went.
Yeah, very much. Ballet was not the normal place a young boy in my town.
Billy Elliot hadn't come out then, guys.
No, it definitely hadn't. And also I took it really seriously. I had all of the kits. I loved it. But yeah.
Wow. And Joseph as well. I saw Joseph, I think I was probably 13 or 14 when that came out. And I just remember, I don't know if it was the same for you, but the buzz around that show was so huge. Like Jason Donovan was like number 1 or number 2 with Any Dream Will Do, and he was so massive at the time. I think they had to stop traffic Great Marlborough Street because of all the fans and stuff like that. It was a huge deal, wasn't it?
I think it was so hard for us to get tickets as a family, and going up to see that show was a huge treat for us. And I went home, and the Christmas present I wanted that year was the CD, Joseph and Technicolor Dreamcoat. And I spent all Christmas Day just studying those colours in order. I can still name all of them: red and yellow and green and brown and scarlet and black and ochre and peach, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was huge. It was a pop culture event. Yeah, and also a brilliant production. And then, of course, there's the video version with Maria Friedman in it, which I then also asked for Christmas in the subsequent years and burnt that VHS out. Yeah, it was a great introduction to theatre.
Because you have the kids' choir in Joseph, don't you? I think that also for kids watching, to see kids on stage stage, that's such an extra part to it, isn't it? To go, oh, wow, there are people like me up there and they're involved and they're colourful and they're vibrant. And I just remember being like massively jealous of all the children that were on the stage.
Yeah. And also what's special about that show is, I mean, I was never a very good singer and I'm definitely not now, but you could be in that show and just be a part of the thing without actually having to be the thing. And I think that is really special about it. You get to look at all these kids on stage who are part of a community, a club, part of something together that's being made on that stage, but not having to be the solo artist out front, not having to be Annie at the front. You know, you're part of a kind of cohesive choir. And I think that's probably something that really appealed to me.
Yeah. I loved the poster. I thought the graphic of that, it looked like it was a coat hanger.
Yeah. And it had the words spelled.
The words were the cloak, weren't they?
Yeah. Part of that generation of theatre posters that are so iconic. I think it was Bob King that did a lot of that. You'd have to fact check me on that. But yeah, I had the poster. It was on my wall at home.
Yeah, me too.
I think I've still probably got it somewhere, you know, signed at stage door in a gold pen from as many people as I could get to do it. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
And so what was the first musical you were ever involved with? And so would that have been as a young professional, Luke?
Oh, yes. Well, the story goes.
Oh,
I know. I saw Joseph there. I think it was the next production or soon after. It was Oliver at the Palladium.
yeah.
And like the precocious young thing I was, I demanded to go in for an audition for that. And eventually, got cast in it. So I was in Oliver at the Palladium. And it turns out I was in it at the same time as Tom Fletcher.
No way.
We did not realise this until, you know, a couple of years into the Paddington process. And my mother, you know, still had the programme and she was just looking through it. And Tom Fletcher was in it as well. And so we didn't know each other. I think we were different teams. I think he was Team Apples and I was Team Pears or something like that. But yeah, we were in the same room for rehearsals and in the same process.
Yeah.
I think it has to be said, though, I'm pretty sure he got to play Oliver himself, whereas I was definitely in the workhouse gang and he played a very, very, very small part within the whole thing. But yeah, I got to be a part of Oliver at the Palladium and then subsequently the Cameron Mackintosh celebration, Hey Mr. Producer.
Oh, wow.
If you put that on the telly,
right,
you can spot at least a kind of 1.5 second shot of me singing to the heavens during Food, Glorious Food. Yeah, with a lovely bowl cut. So yeah, it would have been Oliver. It would have been Oliver. And that kind of discipline of going up to London every day for rehearsals. And then once you're in the show, the rigor of being part of a company and the expectations of that, I think were really formative. And I loved it. I loved every single minute of it. I knew it's what I wanted to do forever in some form. I think deep down inside, I always knew that probably wouldn't be as a performer, but I knew that the theatre was where I belonged.
That's fantastic. Michael Gibson was in Oliver as a young child.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he really loved it and just said, you know, the world of theatre being work, but like such brilliant work was such an eye-opener and so exciting. And you see all these older professionals going in and doing it every day. And that is what he decided he wanted his life to be, you know, and I guess same for you.
Absolutely. I mean, I can still remember the feeling. I used to come out of the stage. My first entrance was through a trapdoor in the stage right next to the orchestra pit. So you'd get that like da dum 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 da dum 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 da da and the big sort of timpani drum bom bom, and it used to go right through my chest. So I was so nervous, but the magic of that sort of anticipation of getting ready to come through the stage in front of an audience that you couldn't see because the lights were so bright, like that feeling is really locked away as a very special memory. But I also think being a part of that, I think particularly being a young person who probably is sort of starting to understand a little bit about where they fit in the world, you know, their sexuality, their sexual orientation, definitely being able to look around a kind of a company full of people who are living a life you could aspire to. I remember feeling very magical in terms of, oh, this is where I belong. There's a community here that I could be a part of in the future.
That cast of kids in Oliver had like some really quite storied people in it. Obviously, now we know you were in it. I think Mike was in it with somebody from Busted, I think, James Bourne. And I think sometimes when you work on such a good musical with such brilliant music in it, like you say, it just gets you going, doesn't it?
It does. And of course, you know, I take great delight in telling people I was a part of it, but there were actually quite a lot of us that did it over the years. So, although I like to think I'm special, I'm not sure I was that special. But yeah, you're right. It really did nurture a generation of performers in the same way that I think Matilda actually has gone on to do. Matilda's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
in the world now for at least 15 years. And yeah, watching some of those young performers go on to fantastic careers is also really exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. Is there a musical out there that you haven't worked on that you have seen a lot of times, that you're a repeat attender at?
Yes, that would be Blood Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
I love that show. It was the show on the touring circuit that would definitely come in year after year after year to our local theatre. And so every year we would go and see it, and it became a kind of a tradition for me. I can still sing you kind of every word of that. But then also it was on the syllabus for school for GCSE drama. I think that was the play, but of course, because the musical was on, we went to see it. And then when I moved to London, one of my jobs was working at the ATG ticketing call centre, which was in sort of the top floor of the new Wimbledon Theatre, which I don't know if it's still there, but the top floor, it was just desks and desks and desks of phone lines. And people like me would go in and plug in and bleep. Somebody would call up to buy tickets. And as part of that, if we were lucky, we would be given tickets to go and see some of the shows. And you could always get a ticket to Blood Brothers. It was on in the West End, and they were very generous letting us go and see it. So whenever I would feel like I needed cheering up or reminding myself why I worked in this world and what I could go on to do, I would ask for one of the tickets to Blood Brothers, and I would go and see it in town. I think it was at the Phoenix then. So I really feel like that show has been a constant in certainly my formative years in terms of what I do. And yeah, I haven't seen it recently. And actually, it's one of those on my list where I go, do you know what? I would really, really love to be in a rehearsal room with that show, because I think it's such a brilliant piece.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I love that you say you go and see it to cheer yourself up. I cry for about half an hour after seeing that show.
That is true. That is true.
It's just devastating.
Yeah.
But it is, like you say, good theatre does cheer you up, doesn't it? And when it's done so well, and it's such an incredible story, the story of Blood Brothers is so compelling and so heartbreaking, and yet so thrilling and funny. I can't imagine it being done any differently, but are the rights out? I don't know. Do the Amdrams do it? I'm not sure.
So Bill Kenwright's company, Bill, who sadly passed, I think still owns the rights and still tours, that same production that I saw decades ago. And that's amazing that gets to live on. What I loved about it so much, and continued to do so, is it felt really accessible. Like the music, you met that music as if it was something you could sing on the radio. And the text felt like anyone who was coming into the audience for the first time into a theatre could access that piece. It was funny. As you said, the story is brilliantly told, and it didn't feel pretentious in any way. It felt like something everybody could come to, and it's a brilliant piece of work.
Yeah.
It's about family as well. And I think those big universal themes are part of what makes a great musical. So yeah, I love that show.
Brilliant. Speaking about how much Blood Brothers makes me cry, which musical has made you laugh the most, and which musical has made you cry the most?
So the musical that has made me laugh the most was Legally Blonde. It was opening in the West End around the time that I moved to London as a 22-year-old. And I got one of the kind of the front row rush tickets that was around at the time. I think I paid maybe £10 to see it. And I sat in the front row and I didn't know the show at all. And it just hit me like this wave, because I think that piece is brilliantly written. It's so well structured and the lyrics are so funny. I just rolled with laughter in my seat. And I was with my partner, who's now my husband. That was a very special experience for us, being able to, we've moved to this city to sit in that beautiful theatre. Yeah, it was amazing. Literally amazing. Even, whenever I'm feeling down in the dumps now, I put that album on and it's still as sharp and as funny as I remember it. It's a brilliant, brilliant piece.
It is, isn't it? It holds up.
Yeah, I remember the song "Gay or European," which I'm sure I think is probably, is it still appropriate? I'm not sure. But again, just hearing that on stage and going like, oh, gay and European, and seeing a sort of celebration of what it means to be gay, I think was also quite important to me at that time. It was in a funny, humorous way, in a way that felt like the gay characters I was seeing on stage were in control of the joke.
Yeah,
it was actually a really progressive piece. And I think we're learning to give it the credit that it's very much due as it ages through the years. And that's why I think it's revived so often, because it's so brilliantly done.
Absolutely.
I think it's a sort of a study for anyone who wants to make new musicals in how to progress action through music, through lyric, through everything coming together, through dance, even the dance break in What You Want. So clearly tells a story. Yeah, for me, it's a textbook example of how to certainly adapt a film for stage, but also then how to take it further than its original form. And I love it for that.
I'm going to go slightly off piece now. Obviously, with Paddington, you have a composer who is very much from the pop world. I know he's, written books and made musicals out of some of his books, Tom Fletcher. And then you have Jessica Swale, who is, a playwright and a screenwriter, I think.
Yeah.
So people who are kind of new to a big musical, was that something you then, as the director, did you have to kind of curate what they were offering and help them with that kind of structure and moving the songs through the script? Is that something you're able to be part of as a director, or do you have to let them do it themselves?
Very good question. And actually, for me, the new musicals that I work on, I really only can work on them. And I've got quite good at saying this to people when I meet them, if I know I can get involved in the structure and the heart of the piece. Like, I'm not somebody on a new musical that you give a script and a score to and say, give us the very best production of this. I'm somebody that you come to who you say, give us the very best production of this and make sure it fully connects to the material itself. And actually, when Jess and Tom and I came to Paddington, it was all at the same time. So there was a blank page. The three of us were able to tell that story in a way that all of us could complement each other's area. Tom had some demos in his brain and Jess had some brilliant comedic scenes and some fantastic structural ideas about where she wanted to take that story. But it was such a collaboration, and I love that. And Jess and Tom, they'd never written a musical before, but they're both huge fans of the art form. And actually, I'd seen Jess's work a lot. I'd seen plays that she'd written. She's also a fantastic director in her own right. And I'd seen shows that she'd done at Southwark Playhouse and at the Watermill. And of course, Tom Fletcher is a brilliant storyteller and an artist with a vision in so many different forms. So although they'd never written a musical before, they knew that form and they loved that form. And actually, Jess, again, had been to see some of my shows, and that was a really useful dialogue. But I really love occupying that space. Same with Anne Juliet, a show that I directed here that has gone on to different productions.
Which I also adored. What a show.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, that's the one I forgot from your introduction. How could I forget that one?
That's all good.
It's incredible show. What a brilliant show.
Well, the thing that's interesting about that is its time in the UK was relatively short-lived initially due to, the year that was 2020.
Yes.
But its life around the world has become, well, certainly this thing that we never expected or that I never anticipated. But it's all because of that production that we made here. But yeah, Max Martin knew all of the music that's included in Anne Juliet, everything from Since You've Been Gone, Hit Me Baby One More Time, Can't Stop the Feeling. He'd never written a musical before. And David West Reed, who wrote the script, which I just think is amazing, had never written a musical before. I love playing that role in the room where I'm like, oh, I'm the nerd who has studied Legally Blonde. Let me take these brilliant things you're giving me and help turn them into this musical that has a structure and a heart that's, I guess, been studied from listening to shows like Legally Blonde and, all the other things that you and I love.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like playing that part in a creative team.
Chief nerd.
Chief musical theatre nerd. And in return, it means, certainly on Anne Juliet, I knew nothing about pop music at all. I really, really didn't. When I first met Max, he had just been working with Taylor Swift. In fact, I think she'd been in the room about a couple of hours before I got there. And I had no idea who she was. They asked me what my favourite pop song was, and I panicked and said Despacito. And, I should have said one of Max's songs. So they sent me on this kind of education of going to see all these pop concerts.
Oh, wow.
I went to see Katy Perry and Britney and Justin Timberlake to learn about it. And David West Reed, who wrote the script for that, he was part of the team that made Schitt's Creek.
Wow.
So his nerdy topic was comedy and characters that break your heart through comedy. And so I like being a nerd of my department and working with nerds of their departments as well. I think that was the same with Jess and Tom. Tom is a music nerd, a storytelling nerd, and Jess is a nerd of comedy and craftsmanship with words. She's so brilliant with characters and dialogue and words. And when you put a lot of nerds in the room together who've got passions for different subjects, I think it can it can be a very special thing.
Things happen. Yeah. I really loved the script actually. When I saw it last night, I thought this is really sophisticated and very funny. I laughed out loud a lot. I thought I need to see more of her work because I found her stuff really entertaining. Really, really good.
Yeah, she's amazing. And the other brilliant thing about Paddington is our producers, Sonia Friedman and Eliza Lumley, who I know you've had on the podcast.
Yes.
Really gave us the space and the permission to grow and nurture that piece. I talk about Jess and Tom as our team, but Eliza and Sonia, really were our development partners on that. And I'm very, very grateful to them for giving us the time and the resources to grow that piece to the fullest it could be.
Eliza actually spoke lots about & Juliet because I've known Eliza for God knows how many, at least 27 years. And what her life has been a huge blend of theatre and pop music. When she saw & Juliet, she saw those two worlds coming together so brilliantly. And she spoke about it a lot and how I think that was how she wanted to find you for Paddington, because she wanted to have that influence on that as well.
Eliza came to see & Juliet on press night in Manchester. At that point, the expectations for that show were very, very low. In fact, I think people thought it would probably not be very good because the title, didn't mean anything to anyone. And to be honest, at the time, I hadn't directed anything of that scale at all. I didn't have any sort of track record, really. When you take the plot and say, oh, it's Juliet from Romeo and Juliet, and instead of dying, she sings Hit Me Baby One More Time and goes on an adventure to Paris, you'd be forgiven for thinking that could go in a different direction. So I remember Eliza coming on press night and she was just, I think it certainly would be safe to say it exceeded her expectations. And I think partly because, as you mentioned, she loves pop music and she loves theatre. And she looked me in the eye and she said, I've got a thing coming up that I think you might be right for. And I'd heard a little rumour that she was thinking about working on Paddington. And so, but I pretended I didn't know. And I said, oh goodness, I've got no idea what that could be. But then spent the next year hounding her to have an interview for it.
Brilliant.
And then eventually her and Sonia interviewed me together. And I think it was about 8 times. I think I had about 8 interviews for that show.
Bloody hell, they put you through the ringer.
Yeah, but quite rightly so. It was a big deal. And I think part of the reason for that rigor was to make sure that whoever took it on understood the expectation and pressure that comes with doing a show like Paddington. He means so much to our country, to us as people, as humans. He's a symbol of so much and a character that people adore. And with the films being so beloved, it was important that whoever took it on, I think had things in place to be able to manage that. And so I look back, and a lot of those 8 interviews, I think, were really about road testing me for that. What about the moments when it's going to be difficult? What about the moments when something doesn't work? What about that preview that doesn't go to plan, but you've still got to come in the next day with a fresh idea and take the cast on that journey.
Yeah.
And so I'm really grateful for that rigorous process. I wasn't at the time because I really wanted it. I was given the chance to take on Paddington because of Eliza seeing & Juliet, and then actually Sonia getting on a train and coming to the Hope Mill Theatre to see Rent, because she hadn't seen loads of my work before. Well, she had, but hadn't really been looking at it through the lens of me as a director. But she got on the train during the pandemic to see Rent at the Hope Mill with I think we had like 60 seats or something with everyone between plastic screens. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Ultimately seeing that and Eliza having seen & Juliet, the two things added up together to them trusting me with it.
Yeah. I find it fascinating how you talk about, those rounds of interviews. Obviously, as actors, we go through the audition process, and sometimes you do have like 6 or 7 auditions for a job. I know how those go. I know what you do in those. So it's really interesting to hear what is required of you then in an interview to be a director of a show that producers are trying to put a team together for. That's really, really fascinating. How do you prepare for that?
Well, for that one, I read all of the books and I became as much of an expert on Paddington as I could. I immersed myself in the films, knowing that would be a big influence on the piece, but then spent time just thinking about the qualities of that story and those characters that really spoke to me and about my way into it. and what was it that I felt spoke to me as an individual? And then also what values would be important to me in creating a new way of telling that story in a new medium. So I knew kindness was something that really spoke to me from the books and the films, that we don't always succeed in being kind, but Paddington reminds us that trying is really important. And also I really love living in London. Something like the song Rhythm of London, I'm so proud of in the production, because it captures a spirit that all of us who came to that show really wanted to bring to the foreground, which was, that thing I remember around the Olympics in 2012 here, that sense of buzz, creativity and pride in our city, which is a big, complicated city with big things to work out and to handle every day. But ultimately, it's where amazing people meet to create extraordinary things. The world, I think, meets in London. And so that was something that I knew that was really important to me. But in terms of actually preparing, I pulled together, lots of different images that spoke to me. I explored kind of little glimmers of structural ideas that I wanted to bring into the room. Obviously, a lot of the talk was around how to do the bear, and also just about other collaborators that I'd want to work with. And so you start to try and paint a picture for producers or your future collaborators in terms of what you will do with it.
So you're kind of pitching yourself, aren't you, really, I guess?
Yes, or rather, I guess, pitching, let's not use the word pitching, like forming the version that you would make. And also I've had lots of interviews where I've gone through that process and actually not got it at the other side. And that's been the right decision, because during that process, I'll often write it all down as well and, send that over. What you're creating is a kind of reference point where you say, this is what I would do with it. This is what I can do with it. This is the only way I know how to tell this story. And either that's going to be the right route forwards or it's not. And if it's not, brilliantly, you should go and work with somebody else on this. Because, my worst nightmare would be to be on a show and then, realize during the development process or the rehearsals that actually what I want to do with it is different to what, the producers would want to do with it. I really believe in my creative team having the producers firmly by my side. And of course, you have your creative disagreements and your differences of opinions, but ultimately you will have to be traveling in that same direction. And that's why I really appreciated the rigor of having to work so hard to get this show.
Yeah.
And Juliet was the same. I really had to put myself forwards for that and dig into why I was the right person for it. And hopefully that's all worked out.
That's great. I don't think we've ever sort of gone down this path with somebody on a podcast before to find out this process. And it's fascinating because I think sometimes, it depends where the idea spurs from, doesn't it? Like sometimes the director is like the person who's had the ideas, but I guess maybe with revivals and with artistic directors and stuff like that. But to find, that directors have to go then through a process with producers. And I guess, because of course that would be the situation, but my brain doesn't think like that. You just think, oh, that's just how it is. They're there from like the Bible, they're there from year dot,
I mean, it's sort of a process that I kind of ask for actually sometimes as well. So if I'm asked to do something new, I will often request that I get to write some ideas down and send it over. I'll often suggest doing, a very non-committal early workshop where it's just, very light touch, some people in a room, and actually that you can then get to the end of that and all look each other in the eye and go, gosh, that 3 days was hard. Let's never do that again because you don't like working with me and vice versa. I actually really value that time of learning together about what the piece could be, dreaming together and learning how to disagree with the people who might be your future collaborators.
Yeah.
Before you launch on that journey. Because, when you're looking at something like Paddington and Juliet, you're hoping that these people are going to be in your lives for a very long time because, the dream is that the shows live on in the world and as many people as possible get to see them and enjoy them. So that kind of dating process, I think is really key. I really valued it on those shows that I've mentioned.
No, that's fantastic. Isn't it funny where Legally Blonde can lead?
Yeah, there you go.
So after that brilliant discussion, which musical made you cry the most? And where did that lead you?
Well, trouble is, as I get older, I feel like I cry more often. I used to be much more sort of detached from things. I'd watch things as more of a kind of student of them and, try and work out the mechanics of it. And so I guess kind of wouldn't let myself cry. I mean, if I was allowed to choose shows that I worked on, it would be The Little Big Things.
Oh, yes.
Because that just broke my heart every night because of the writing and the material. But I'm not going to choose that because I didn't work on it. Instead, maybe I can choose a couple of moments from different shows.
Oh, yes, please.
So it's funny you mentioned Mamma Mia earlier, because I remember going to see that because I knew I was going to work on Anne Juliet. And so I went back to watch it to try and understand, what was it about that show that really has worked for people? People think I'm bonkers for saying this perhaps, but I remember when Slipping Through My Fingers started and it broke my heart because suddenly I was totally with that character. And they break kind of the inverted commas rules there. I think it's something like there's 3 ballads side by side in Mamma Mia at that point. I might be wrong.
No, you're right.
But, you wouldn't normally do that. But it works this kind of magical effect over you. And then by the time you get to Slipping Through My Fingers, you're watching a mother come to terms with, what it means to be watching her daughter grow up and move on in the world. I think I'd let my guard down because, I thought I was like, oh, I've learned
it to you.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't expect. And it just got me. And it's interesting. If you look at Anne Juliet, there's a song called That's the Way It Is, which happens around halfway through Act 2, which I always hoped would have a kind of similar effect to Slipping Through My Fingers. So there you go. A moment from Mamma Mia that made me cry. And then it's a lesser known musical. You've probably seen it, which is Bear. Do you know the show Bear?
Do you know what? I haven't seen it, but I've heard brilliant things about it.
Yeah, I love it as a piece. And there's a song in it. I think it's called Requiem or Role of a Lifetime. It's a young gay character learning about their place in the world and wrestling with their struggles. I saw that piece in a production in New York, and I've also seen it over here. And, while it's quite easy to get sort of academic about musicals, and, I think sometimes that show's had some brilliant reviews and sometimes it's had some tougher reviews, but to me, it speaks to me in a way that I find very, very moving. And all of the times I've seen that show, I found it utterly heartbreaking. So if anyone's not seen that or listened to it, I'd recommend seeking it out.
Absolutely. They did it somewhere small, didn't they, over here? Like, was it the Union or like maybe the old Southwark?
Yeah, I think or the Vaults. It might have been done at the Vaults.
The Vaults, yeah.
It's been done in a few places in the drama schools as well. And, it's one of those shows that I think, people have come at from different angles of trying to restructure it and change it. But the heart of it is very moving and very tragic. Again, it's another one where I was able to go and not just be a student of the material, but go, gosh, it's really, really moving.
You can let your guard down.
Yeah. Mamma Mia I think it falls into my favourite category of shows, which is sort of, I call them Trojan horses, where you think on the outside that they're one thing, but then once they've won you over and you've let your guard down, they kind of sucker punch you as something else. And I think that's something that I've always, tried to bring to the shows that I work on, which is on the outside, Anne Juliet might look like a big, fun, glittery comedy, but actually on the inside, it's got some big themes about love and who you can love and what it means to love, what it means to have loss in your life. And Paddington was the same, on the outside, it's a story about a bear trying to find a home told in a really fun way. But on the inside, it's got more to say about what it means to come to a city that you thought was going to welcome you and turns its back, what it means to be a family who's trying to reconcile a rift that's underneath the surface. And again, that Slipping Through My Fingers moment, that's why I love it. For me, it shifts from being the thing you thought it was going to be to the thing that brings you back again and again.
Yeah. It's sort of like the middle eight in a song, isn't it? Where that middle eight kind of, you have the verse, the chorus, and then the middle eight just, like you say, sucker punches you and you go, okay, this is what the song is about. This is what this musical is about.
Exactly.
Fabulous. Oh, I love that. You don't often get Mamma Mia in that category, Luke, so thank you for adding that. There's a musical out there that I haven't seen. I haven't ever seen a professional production of West Side Story. Is there a musical out there that you feel like you should have seen and you haven't?
Follies.
Follies.
I have never seen Follies. Yeah.
God, I've seen that so many times.
I've I've never seen it. I missed the production at the National. I was, I think, working out of the country at the time, and I've just never seen it. And I think it doesn't come around that often. I think mostly because the casting of it's, not always the easiest thing to align at the right time. But yeah, I've never seen it, and I would love to. So that's my one.
I actually saw Matthew Warchus's Follies. That was the first show I ever saw on Broadway.
Wow, that's partly why I feel so bad that I've not seen it, because everybody talks about Matthew's production of it so fondly. And of course, the National Theatre production was so beloved as well. But yeah, I've never seen it. And I feel like a very bad musical theatre fan for having not made that happen. But there's, still time.
There is absolutely still time. You can go see Follies, and I will go and see West Side Story.
There you go. Yeah.
I feel quite good now about myself, because I feel like I feel bad about not seeing that. But I also think not seeing Follies, that's pretty bad too. So we can be in that boat
bad
together.
There you go.
Bad musical theatre nerds.
Exactly.
Thank you, Luke. Let's have a quick break and then jump back in for Act 2. So on Talk Musicals to Me, I thought I would use this opportunity to support some friends of mine who have small businesses. And I put a message out on my social media to see who would get in touch and to see how I can help them amplify their voices. So I have a couple of ones that I would like to mention today. So this one is from my friend John Chartres, who runs a small business specialising in accounting for the arts, self-employed actors, musicians and stage management, as well as small production companies. Friendly advice and good value for anyone who wants to get in touch at fresheyesfinance.co.uk. And this is from a dear mummy pal of mine called Lucy McCrudden, who runs a non-profit called Dance Mama, which is dedicated to supporting parents who dance on and off stage. With evidence-based information and support, plus over 80+ stories, we help parents continue their careers in dance from a physical, mental, creative and logistical viewpoint. Check out www.dancemama.org to see how they can help you navigate your career as a parent. And finally, Jessica runs something that sounds like great fun, a thing called Showtime Circus, which can be found at Showtime_circus on Instagram. It's a circus school franchise and helps other small business owners franchise or license their business. It's based in Birmingham, but I think there's lots of them around the country. So get online and have a look if you want to learn some circus skills. Hello and welcome back to Act 2 of Talk Musicals to Me with the fabulous Luke Sheppard. And we're having such a great chat. I'm loving this, Luke. I'm finding so much about you and so much we have in common, which is excellent. So my first question of the second half. We spoke earlier about Blood Brothers being on the school curriculum. What musical would you choose to put on the school curriculum?
I would choose Matilda. I know I've worked on it as an associate director, but I'm hoping that doesn't count in terms of breaking the rules for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's brilliantly written, and what Dennis Kelly and Tim Minchin have created alongside Matthew is so well crafted. It's a celebration of reading and of learning, and also its key message of standing up to bullies is something that I think young people can take so much from. And so, yes, if I could prescribe one musical on the curriculum, it would be that.
Yeah.
And also, I defy any young person to meet that musical and then say musical theatre isn't for them, because those songs and the joy that it brings to young people who encounter it is really, really clear. But also, it's not afraid to be scary and to talk about some of the difficult things that exist in the world. And so it's an education. That's what I would prescribe.
I think that's a great one. I love Matilda. So Luke, my next question is, oh God, where's it gone? What's my next question? I had it up here. Hold the line, caller.
Which forgotten musical would you like to see remounted?
Oh, you've got it there.
Yeah.
You've got it there. See, that's preparation for you.
So this one, I don't think you could say it's forgotten, but I'm worried that it's going to be if it's not brought back soon. Betty Blue Eyes. But I feel like that show never quite got the long life that I think it deserves. Again, full disclosure, I did direct a small production of it at a drama school at ArtsEd.
Which I heard was Phenomenal.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's one of those that's always stuck with me. And I'm worried that we will forget it if it doesn't come back soon, because I think George Stiles and Anthony Drew created brilliant work on that show. And the characters were so easy to fall in love with. And again, it had something to say. And I miss that not having been on our stages as long as I think it should have been.
Oh, I think you're so right.
I don't think anyone could say it's forgotten yet, but I think we should make sure it doesn't get forgotten.
We should look after it.
Yeah, it's a great piece.
Yeah, I so agree. I was actually involved in a lot of the workshops for that and just adored it so much. The laughs that we had in those rooms and the tears, the music, how much we adored singing the music, the kind of silliness of it, but also the reality of it and the grittiness of it. And, you know, the struggle against the backdrop of rationing and the sort of changing world post-war. I really remember being shocked. There's a line in it that somebody says, I miss the war. And I remember that we were all like, God, that's weird, because surely you wouldn't miss the war. But they were like, well, what they're saying is they miss how the war brought people together.
Yeah.
And I think I can actually now see that post-COVID.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I mean, I didn't love lockdown at all, but there were parts of lockdown that I was like, oh, I loved the fact that the rat race stopped in lockdown, you know, the competition and the who's up for what and who's auditioning for what and what shows are people doing next and that kind of feeling of having to keep up.
Yeah.
And when that stopped, that was a really lovely feeling of going, I'm not missing out on anything because it's not happening. But it was awful that it wasn't happening, you know.
And, you know, you look at like the everyone banging their pots and, you know, outside their windows, there's a direct through line to that moment that Betty Blue Eyes captures. I think we can learn a lot by looking back on moments in history, obviously, and Betty Blue Eyes, I think, does that. So I would love to see that. I would love to see that come back. And if I get to be involved in it, then all the better.
Make it happen, Luke. You're a hugely successful director now. These things can happen.
It feels very weird to hear you say that, actually. But the thing about being a director is you can't do it on your own. If you're a painter, you can paint a picture and you can show it to the world. If you're a composer, you can sit at a piano and write a song. If you're a director, so much of what we do is invisible and can only exist with other people. And actually, that is what I love about it. But it does mean that sometimes if you want to go and make something happen, you can't just do it by yourself. It takes a lot of people to say yes to you. And also, ultimately, to find a space. You know, we can only do what we do if we have a space to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will do my best at some point to make sure that show has another life.
Pop the idea in some influential people's heads. So my next question, Luke, is there any musical which inspired you to make a strong choice in your life?
Okay, I have one. It's going to break the rule again a little bit. But the problem is a lot of the musicals that I love, I do get to work on in some form.
You make sure you do, by the sounds of it.
And I really love working and I love doing what I do. So
yeah.
It means that there's quite a lot of those shows that come into my life. It's apt because I'm working on at the moment, which is Rent. There's a very specific lyric in that show, in I'll Cover You. Live in my house, I'll be your shelter. Just pay me back with 1,000 kisses. Be my lover and I'll cover you. And I remember listening to that as a young person who was understanding that, you know, they were gay. And that duet that's sung between Angel and Collins offered a pathway through what it meant to find love as a gay man, and hearing this song sung passionately, honestly, between two characters that were on the queer spectrum. And, you know, Angel's a complicated character to describe because there's lots of different ways, I think, to describe Angel from different kind of gender perspectives. But what I heard at that time were two voices that I recognized as close to my voices singing about being in love with each other in a way that wasn't just about some of the kind of stereotypes that I'd seen on screen. And so I think hearing that song, reading those lyrics and understanding those characters as a young person allowed me to make an active choice to pursue finding that kind of companionship or that love in my life for myself.
That's beautiful.
And it does break the rule, I'm sorry.
No, but that's totally allowable, I think. What I enjoy so much about doing this podcast is that we talk about musicals and the world of musicals and how they impact on our lives. And every answer opens up so many sort of world questions. Do you know what I mean? It's not just about the sort of technical things about musicals, it's about life questions and how musicals can affect people as a human rather than as a worker. Do you know what I mean? And I think having spoken so much about the work of musical theatre, to then find something that goes so much to the core of life and love and humanity is really lovely. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I mean, you'd have been like super young when Rent came out, because I was like in my early 20s.
Yeah, so this is the 30th anniversary. Yeah, so I think I found that piece, maybe when I was 16, 17, listening to it. And yeah, it was a little lit candle in the world of a life.
Yeah. I know you've just announced Gaten Matarazzo, is that, or Matarazzo?
Yeah, yeah.
Coming in to play Mark in your revival. To me, as sort of coming out of college, that's when it was all sort of kicking off for me. It landed like Hamilton back then. It was that sort of big bomb going off in the musical theatre world, changing everything. So I think this new revival is going to be really exciting. So, but you've done the show before.
So after And Juliet, which was the biggest thing I'd done at that point, and still, in many ways, I wanted to go back to the spaces that I knew, the sort of Southwark Playhouses, the Hope Mill. So along with Joe and Will, who run the Hope Mill, we got the rights to Rent to put on in a very small way, in a very small room. And of course, then 2020 happened. And we still went ahead. We played by the rules, but I think we were the only show running in the country, certainly, probably, in a significant portion of the planet during October 2020. We were putting it on. We all lived in a house together. All the cast were in one house and all the creative team were in another house, all of those things.
I think for something like Rent, that must have been a really good exercise, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either in a good way or a terrible way.
Yeah. We got shut down again on the 5th show. And so we filmed it and we somehow got the rights to stream it. And I'm very, very proud of it. And it was a brilliant, brilliant experience. But it feels unfinished to me. It feels like, with that version we made, we were under very strict rules about everyone having to be 6 foot apart. And so making it in 2020 was about keeping everybody apart. This new version that we're making now, for me, is the opposite, which is about bringing everybody together. So yeah, I'm returning to it. And what's nice is, I'm 5 years further on into my life and my career, and there's a lot that I've learned that I want to bring back to it. And we're ready to do it in the West End. I know what the pressure is of that, because it means a lot to people. It is one of those that people go, you have no idea how much that means to me. You've got to get it right. I'm enjoying the very quiet pressure of that, waking up every day. And we're doing auditions at the moment, and we're meeting the most incredible people, the most extraordinary artists, some of which people might know, some of which people won't. It's absolutely thrilling to feel that kind of high stakes thing of, this is the 30th anniversary. It's in the West End. People want this to work, but also we've got to get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what's the timetable at the minute? You're in auditions, then when do you start rehearsals? And
yeah, so we had our white card model box last week, which is where we make a very early version of the set. We're in auditions right now, about to make some of our offers, and then rehearsals start in August, and we open for previews later this year.
Oh, it's soon then.
It's soon. It's really soon. Yeah.
Great stuff. Oh, how exciting. My next question actually leads quite on from this, because Rent did sort of, like we say, explode the world of musical theatre. It still sticks to so much of the formula of musical theatre. What would you say is the secret to that, to getting a musical right? What's the secret to a good musical?
It is such an impossible question to answer, and brilliantly so, because actually if we knew what the answer was, then it would all be ruined.
It would, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I think the secret is the people, the alchemy of the people. If you've got the right people in the room at the right time, then that's where magic happens. And actually, also in addition to that, the piece has to meet the world at the right time. I think there's been some really great musicals over the years that have arrived at the wrong moments.
I think you're right, yeah.
Or just missed that window where they would have sort of transcended through. So I think it's about the right people at the right time. If you look at those sort of landmark musicals over the decades, I think that's what has happened. Also, I think a lot of those shows have been made at a moment of kind of naivety in people's careers. I mean, for example, you take Rent, which I do think is one of our greatest musicals. That was Jonathan Larson writing that before he really become a celebrated artist in his own right. He'd had success, but there was something kind of wonderful about it. Was written as somebody who was still up and coming. If you look at Matilda again, another example we've talked about, Tim Minchin hadn't written a full musical at that point. You've got artists who are coming to something who love the form, but don't have the pressure of previous successes that they're having to match up to. And I think there's a kind of freedom of creativity that comes with that when you don't have this idea of you have to make the next hit, you have to make the next hit. And I think that's a good lesson for everyone who does what we do, which is to not try to be emulating success that you might have had as an individual yourself before, and certainly not trying to emulate, the next person's or somebody else's success. Don't try and be the next ... And it's interesting, often you'll meet with theatres or producers and they'll say, oh, we're looking for the next insert musical here. And of course, for example, something like Six, when Six came along, it wasn't trying to be the next something else.
No,
it was so inherently its own thing and brave for that. And so I would say that that's another thing that all great musicals have in common, is they're so individually themselves. They have a really clear sense of individual identity and voice. So yeah, the right people in the right room at the right time who are able to bring their voices to it in the clearest way, where they're not afraid of failure and they're not afraid of something feeling a little imperfect. And we do have this thing with, when we talk about formulas and we talk about, show structures. And look, I happen to believe that a lot of the great musicals have things in common. Lots of them have the I Want song and the 11 o'clock number. There's also a lot to be said for breaking those rules and having an imperfection to it. And lots of the shows that I love are actually imperfect in many ways and aren't afraid to have a few little rough edges.
Yeah.
And, lots of the shows that we've talked about here, I think do have some rough edges to them, but that's what makes them have that thing that
makes you love them.
Yeah. It stops them being overly smooth, overly polished, and that little bit of angularity in there.
They're not a goody two-shoes musical.
Yeah, exactly. Or somebody's not come along and gone, oh, this little bump here needs to be perfectly ironed out. They've let that little bit of grit stay in there. And actually, it's a note to myself on lots of things that I am working on at the moment, which is, yes, these projects can feel really high stakes, etc., but don't iron out the grit all the time. Let there be a roughness to it. Let there be an imperfection to it. Let the naivety still exist within the piece. Otherwise, I think there's a danger that something could become, on paper, a very good musical, but an audience don't have that same emotional engagement with, because there's no bumps for them to hold on to.
Yeah, it's too clean.
And it is a note to myself, because I can see how that can happen. And the things that I'm most proud of do have that little bit of imperfection baked into it. And as I carry on through this as a career, and, in many ways, the stakes get higher and people sort of want more of a kind of polished thing from you. I want to make sure that I always hold on to those lessons that I learned back in spaces like Southwark Playhouse and the Hopeville Theatre, all those workshop rooms where you're trying to solve something with a plank of wood and a chair.
Yeah,
there you go.
Those limitations can sometimes make something brilliant happen. I think there's quite a lot of examples of that.
Paddington, actually, while on the outside it might look like we were limitless, we put quite a lot of limitations on ourselves. We made a version of that. We didn't do an out-of-town tryout, but we did a kind of off West End version that we kept very private. So it was just a black box room, and we had a 6-week rehearsal process, and we made the show and we put it on at the end with a taxi made out of cardboard.
Yeah.
Some walls made out of plywood. And we did essentially the Southwark Playhouse version of the show before we made the Savoy Theatre version of the show.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful for that, because we realised that we could do things in a simple way. Yeah. And actually the Savoy as a space is very, very small. And so you're right to say restriction of space, actually fitting into that beautiful box of a theatre, but it's not a huge box, put brilliant limitations on the production that we then had to solve. And I know that sounds crazy because it's a very well-resourced production and brilliantly produced, but the limitations that we placed on ourselves by working in a smaller theatre than perhaps we could have gone to, and also from some very clever producing decisions to grow the piece in a bare bones way. I think that's come through in the ultimate material.
I think that's a brilliant idea to do that. That's an absolutely brilliant idea. You've spoken quite a lot about if you're in a bad mood, you'll listen to Blood Brothers to cheer you up or something like that. So this is what this question is really. It's the rule breaker question. You can absolutely talk about one of your own shows here. Which musical feeds your soul? If you're having a bad day and you want to go and see something or listen to something that's gonna, I always say it sort of makes my ears relax or something if I listen to something. Which musical would be your first one to turn to?
Okay, I'm actually not going to break the rules because I broke the rule a little bit earlier on. And I feel bad for that. So I'll let that be the trump card earlier on. But at the moment, it would be the soundtrack to the Buena Vista Social Club musical on Broadway.
Oh, yes. I've heard amazing things about this.
Yeah. First of all, I love the original album, the Buena Vista Social Club album. I took a trip to New York specifically to see that show because, whenever a new show opens in New York, because of the way the ecosystem works there, you're never sure exactly how long it's going to be.
I never know how long
for.
it's going to last.
Yeah, brilliantly, it has lasted, but I knew I wanted to see it. And so I went over and it was everything I hoped for. The musicianship in that production was amazing. And I think the album captures that in such a fantastic way. When I went to see it as part of the playbill, there was a special playbill inside that kind of gave you like a track breakdown of the songs and the stories of that. And so, if ever I'm having a bad day, I put that on. I look at the little extra playbill that I got and that music. Yeah, it just does exactly what you said. It relaxes my ears, it relaxes my heart. And I think, reminds me of the power of what music can do. And also you can hear the story of that show through the music. And it just takes me back to, what was a very happy trip seeing that show and feeling lucky to be in that room with those incredible musicians. I hope it comes to London because I really thought it was brilliant. And if you've not listened to it, I highly recommend it.
I haven't listened to it. I will listen. That sounds fantastic. I was out in New York in January where you didn't go and see it. I'm regretting it now.
It's great.
What you said about things lasting in New York, you never know how long they're going to last. You see the success of And Juliet is still on. It's lasted a good couple of years out there, 2 or 3 years, maybe longer. How long has it been?
I think we're in our 4th year now.
Wow.
I'm not totally sure.
That is a huge achievement.
Yeah.
And 6 is still on out there. And yet last year at the Tonys, all these huge shows, Boop, Smash, all these massive shows, the Tonys happened and then they just closed. I find that really quite terrifying. And now this year, there's nowhere near as many new shows that are open. Is there anything that you sort of feel about that? And I wonder if maybe Six and Juliet, there's more surety with those because they've had such success over here. Is it that investors are far more likely to keep their money in there than just have their nerves jangled because of sort of Tonys and nominations and stuff like that?
It's a really good question. I can probably only speak to Anne Juliet, although that really caught us by surprise because, its life was curtailed here. It didn't, I think, enter officially the bracket of being a hit over here because it didn't last as long as many other shows. So I think in lots of ways it was a real risk for Broadway. There was something about it opening over there that felt like lightning in a bottle. It caught the imagination of its audiences. And actually, I think out of that year, we're the only new musical still running, I think.
Wow.
We're also the one that didn't win any awards, but we're still running. That's been a really interesting life lesson.
Whereas Olivier-wise, you sort of cleaned up, didn't you, really, with the Oliviers?
We had a lot of nominations for the Oliviers for Juliet. What was very interesting for that show, I think it got 9 Olivier nominations and 9 Tony nominations, essentially for everything other than Best Director.
Oh, no!
Which was quite an educational experience to live through, actually.
They found out how young you were, that's what it was.
Something like that. But it was a kind of a good education, actually, in how to navigate what sort of priorities within yourself and how to set expectations in terms of highs and lows and things. But most of my career is here, and I feel very, very fortunate to have had some shows and to be having some shows that will be going to Broadway. But I do feel very lucky to be working here mostly in the UK because I think there is a protection from that very immediate sense of the show having to work or not work.
Yeah.
Although I think, it will be worked out. People are going to work it out over there because, Broadway loves musicals and America loves Broadway. and we're always going to need new work. So I think this is a moment, and last year's season, as you said, was particularly tough. But I think we have to believe that will work itself out.
Yeah, believe in a happy ending.
Yeah.
So I will look up Buena Vista Social Club and listen to that. I might listen to it on my way into work today.
It's great.
Will it make me will I look amazing dancing to it on the train? Or will people stare at me?
Yeah, I love the fact your listeners can't actually see what you're doing right now.
What am I doing? Yeah, no, it's probably best.
But for the benefit of the podcast, Caroline is doing some extraordinary dance moves.
Some shoulder choreography right now.
Exactly.
So, Luke, we've got Rent coming up. I'm sure there's lots in your future. Is there anything you can tell us, or is it all top secret?
Well, I'm very proud of Paddington and excited about that being in London. And, we hope that we'll get to take our bear to some other places too. So watch this space for that. And Rent is my next project in London, which I'm hugely passionate about. For anyone listening abroad, we've got Anne Juliet opening in Utrecht in the Netherlands.
Oh, wow.
And in Stuttgart later this year. So we've got 2 new productions opening there, as well as where it's currently on tour in the US and on Broadway. And then what I'm really enjoying is having some space to make some new things. So Paddington is a big part of my life for the last 5 years, along with some other really shows that meant a lot to me and were also quite big in scale. And now I'm starting to dip my toe back into some new projects. So can't tell you about those yet, but maybe in a couple of years. And then also next year, we've got Starlight Express touring and Just for One Day touring. So
fantastic.
Anyone who's listening who might live near a theatre where those are going, check them out if you can.
I'd like Anne Juliet to tour around again. I saw the tour last year, I think, or maybe 18 months ago. And I saw it in London as well, but I thought the tour was fantastic. I loved it in London too. To be in a regional audience for that, I don't know if it's just a slightly different vibe, but
I was very, very proud of that tour, and a fantastic cast. And yes, I look forward to the day that we're able to bring Anne Juliet back to the UK and actually London. I'd love to have it back in its home city without a pandemic
virus-free city.
Yeah, exactly. So, fingers crossed at some point we might see that as well.
Oh, Luke, thank you so much. It's just been wonderful to see your meteoric rise, but also to hear from you about all these stories and how, how hard you've worked. And I'm really inspired by how you've gone about making things happen for yourself. And I think that's a really important lesson to us all.
I'm proud of musical theatre as an art form, and I think often here we're told sort of as directors that you've got to go and cut your teeth on plays first of all before you do new musicals or revivals of musicals. I like to think that that's changing a little bit. Fingers crossed.
I think it is. You are now the best director. Over here, it's not best director of a musical, it's best director. Thank you so much for listening today. This has been Talk Musicals to Me for the Bloop Network. My fabulous producer is Aaron Ware, and the music you heard is from the pen of the sublime Tom Self. If you get a moment, please subscribe or follow and rate the podcast by clicking the stars below on the podcast page. It takes about 2 seconds to do, and it will really help the podcast and its future life, and would make us massively, eternally, enormously grateful. In the meantime, another huge thanks for tuning in, and please do so again next time to see who will be next up to talk musicals to me.